Good morning. So good to be with you this morning. Our first reading this morning is called A Portable Paradise, a poem by Roger Robinson. And if I speak of paradise, then I'm speaking of my grandmother, who told me to carry it always on my person, concealed, so no one would know but me. That way, they can't steal it, she'd say. And if life puts you under pressure, trace its ridges in your pocket. Smell its piney scent on your handkerchief. Hum its anthem under your breath. And if your stresses are sustained and daily, get yourself to an empty room, be it hotel, hostel, or hovel. Find a lamp and empty your paradise onto a desk. Your white sands, green hills, and fresh fish. Shine the lamp on it like fresh hope of morning and keep staring at it till you sleep. Our Bible reading this morning comes from Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 to 9. And I'm reading from a women's lectionary for the whole church by Wilda C. Gaffney. And a special thanks to the dramatic role of God being played today by Ruth. 6 days later, after Jesus told the disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and biblical scholars and be killed, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and brought them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured in front of them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white as light. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And then Peter responded, saying to Jesus, "Teacher, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will pitch tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He was still speaking when, look, a cloud full of light overshadowed them, and then a voice from the cloud said,
"This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him."
When the disciples heard this, they fell upon the ground and were very much afraid. Then Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." They looked up and they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Woman from the dead has been raised." On this Transfiguration Sunday, I'll do my best to make the case that our flamboyant Creator has flair and pizzazz. Once you're convinced, I hope we can work out what is and is not a proper response to a God who is in fact a drama queen in the best sense of the term. There is certainly plenty of spectacle in this mountaintop experience that we read in Matthew 17. But I want to go back to the beginning and revisit some Old Testament narratives that help us see that we have surely inherited a legacy of astounding glory before returning back to this scene. Talk about dramatic effect. Genesis opens with a formless void and darkness covering the face of the deep, which seems like an enormous black opening curtain that is slowly rising to build anticipation and open the show. While a wind from God sweeps over the face of the waters, then God said,
"Let there be light."
And there was light. It goes on, this methodical peacocking as God creates every good thing, including us, using dramatic methods, of course, with Adam's rib serving as the abracadabra magic wand that creates the most important invention ever, women. Let's hear it for the girls. And when the heavens and the earth were finished, she steps back to appraise her work and proclaims,
"Darn, I'm good."
And then takes to her fainting couch for a full day. Suddenly, we find ourselves transported to the Garden of Eden and the dramatic telling of the first sin and its punishment, with the crafty crafty serpent and Eve inhabiting the first villainous roles. Then we get the ancient version of Dateline with the very first true crime story of Cain murdering his brother Abel. And we get the famous line, "Am I my brother's keeper?" To which we, the audience, shout, "Yes," from our seats. I mean, listen to the dynamic dialogue in the script that is Genesis 4. And the Lord said,
"What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground, and now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it will no longer yield its strength. You will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth."
To which Cain says to God, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Anyone who meets me may kill me." And God puts a mark on Cain so that no one who came upon him would kill him. Ultimately, this Dateline episode ends with God sentencing Cain to life in a prison of his own making instead of to the death penalty. Eventually, we get the great flood and the hero of Noah, and that story literally ends with the invention of rainbows as a symbol of God's promise. It's all laid on so thick that you're surprised there are no leprechauns, unicorns, or mermaids. Did I mention that you have inherited a legacy of astounding glory? Your God is a drama queen who has left us with the greatest stories of all time. And the dramatic roles don't end there. Jacob literally wrestles with God. We get an episode of Succession with Joseph and his brothers. Before you know it, here comes Moses and the burning bush, yet another murder, and the "let my people go" speech, and then all the terrible plagues. In the soap opera found in 2 Samuel 11, David commits adultery with Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. To cover up the resulting pregnancy, this is the full soap opera, David attempts to bring Uriah home from the battle to sleep with Bathsheba so that he can think that it's his baby, but Uriah refuses because he has too much integrity to leave while his comrades are in battle. Consequently, David orders Uriah to be placed in the front lines of the battle where he is killed. If you think the Bible is boring, you may be reading the wrong parts. And since I don't have time to showcase all of the ensuing theater that is the Bible, I want to move us forward to our passage for today, Matthew and the Feast of the Transfiguration, a mountaintop moment in which the veil between heaven and earth are parted. Jesus communes with the ancestors, with some of his disciples present as witnesses. Surely the account of what happens on Mount Sinai could win the Academy Award for Best Cinematography for its vivid depiction of a miraculous event, and the way it all plays out is fascinating. The text reads, "He was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. All of a sudden, it's All Saints' Day, a time to commune with those who came before. People who are long dead show up. And how do the living humans react? Peter says, 'I will make thee three dwelling places or tents.' Curious. Your guess is as good as mine about why Peter made this strange offer. Is it that we humans always want to jump into problem solving even when there's no problem? Is it our inclination to diffuse mystical, spiritual occurrences with practicality, with things that you can see, touch, count, and understand? Is it that Peter doesn't want this moment to end, so he wants to create a dwelling place so that everyone just stays put? And while he was speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said,
'This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him.'
And how do the living humans respond? With fear, with awe, with confusion, to which Jesus says, 'Get up and do not be afraid. And oh, by the way, tell no one about this vision until after the Son of Woman has been raised from the dead.'" End scene. And oh, what a curtain call it would be. Encore, encore. Can't we just picture this standing ovation? So we started with the marvel of our drama queen, divine diva, surveying her creative endeavor, examining each and everything she painstakingly made and declaring it all very good. Then at the Transfiguration, God shows up and said, "This is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." We hear God freely and enthusiastically expressing pleasure and pride over and over again. And yet, how do we show up before God? Are we proud as peacocks, strutting our stuff, assured that she will find favor with us? Of course not. We've integrated the wrong stories and lessons. We forget that we have a legacy of astounding glory. How can we reclaim it? How can we show up differently as the offspring of this kind of flamboyant exuberance, as if our lives are the performance and the show must go on and it all must be fabulous? How would you show up if you knew that God was going around saying to anyone who would listen, "This is my beloved child, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to them"? Would you make different plans? Prioritize some things you've had on the back burner and kick others to the curb? Take some risks knowing that God is your safety net? Demand more respect, take better care of yourself, make time and space for exactly what you need? The word glory in the Bible is derived from the Hebrew kavod, which means weightiness, and the Greek doxa, which means radiance. It refers to the visible manifestation of God's goodness and divine nature, often appearing as brilliant light, fire, or cloud. Glory in the Bible signifies the heavy weight, immense worth, honor, and brilliant splendor of God's character, presence, and majesty that lives inside of you. Is this weightiness and radiance reflected in your life? Surely the correct response to God's flair for the dramatic cannot be business as usual. Mediocrity, a rote way of doing things, constraint and control. I heard someone use a phrase recently that went straight to my heart like an arrow because it described how I've been feeling. They called it the perimenopause of my passions. It's a metaphor to describe that as I've aged and gotten wiser, my edges have blunted, my passion and zest for life has constricted some, and the swell of emotions that comes naturally in youth is much harder to access. It's the weary sigh you release when you hear the exuberance of a young person who doesn't quite yet know how the world works. All that to say, I am using this transfiguration story and our biblical creation story to wake me up, to remind me that we have inherited a legacy of astounding glory, and that the only proper response is creativity, active passion, excellence, shaking things up, celebration, protectiveness over the humanity and dignity of others. In 1968, NASA funded a study to identify what is creative genius. Researchers found that about 2% of adults fit into this category, but when they tested young children, 98% showed up as creative geniuses. This means your essential God-given nature is creative genius. With intention, we can reclaim this part of ourselves and set it free. We don't get to call ourselves Christian and show up with staleness. Instead, we should shake ourselves and each other awake. What if by living a meh life, we are squandering our birthright and it's an offense to God? I dare not attempt to tell you how to reclaim your birthright and astounding glory. How we go about it is different for each and every one of us, and only you know how to go about it. If this message has stirred anything inside of you, maybe something you can't quite name or put a finger on, maybe God is trying to get you to do something that warrants a standing ovation from yourself. These stories about your majestic inheritance, the astounding glory that you were born from and into, may have poked at your inner knowing that it's time to make some changes. Let God take the director's seat of your life. Deep inside, you know how to be the main character, to show up with a zest for life, to show up like a peacock who struts your stuff. Today you have heard God's plea, do not be afraid. And you have been reminded that God is well pleased with you. Go out there and do what you must to put on quite the show. God's great commandment is simple but dramatic, to love God and love others. You can't do that on your couch watching Netflix by yourself. Go out there and be a drama queen. Mary Oliver asks us, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild, precious life? Save a ticket for us. We'll be in the front row cheering you on. This is the good news of God. Amen.